Hey everyone, this is your host Sanjo Tran, and this is the 20th episode of the Centaku Media Journal. Thank you for listening, and if it's your first time here, especially thank you so much for giving us a listen. The Centaku Media Journal is a bi-weekly news program where we talk about the latest news and events happening in the world of anime and other Asian pop culture interests. That means that if you enjoy K-pop as well, then this is the place to be, so I hope you will follow along for us for a little while. And to kick off the episode, I do have a few announcements, and I took the initiative and wrote up some notes of what to talk about, because I have this bad habit of rambling in the intro and wasting 10 minutes of like, oh yeah, I went to school today, blah 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 blah, even though I don't really go to school. I'm a little old to go to school. Let's say I'm level 32, but I mean, it's not too late to go to school, but this is to give you an idea. I don't want to bore anyone with that, and this is what I'm about to do anyway, so I'm going to stop it. Anyway, that would probably be a good time to do that in the Twitch stream, which I'll talk about in a little bit, in which I have some announcements concerning the Twitch channel as well. But, so yeah, for this episode, we got a lot to talk about gaming-wise, and there's one news story I'm actually really excited about, which I think is going to take up most of the time anyway, so I want to at least dedicate some energy for that part. But so we're going to get on with the announcements, and to announce things that are happening around the Centaku Media verse, there's a giveaway underway on the Centaku Media Twitter account, which you can go to at Centaku Media, and it is for a $25 PlayStation Network gift card, which only works for the US accounts, or if you know how to fund a US account. If you're outside of the US, then enter at your own risk, but we'll be giving away a card to a lucky winner. All you gotta do is look at the pinned post that corresponds with the contest, read the rules. Basically, you like and retweet that tweet and follow Centaku Media if you haven't already, and that will guarantee you an entry or a chance of winning the $25 gift card, in which it ends 2 days from when you listen to this episode. So if the episode, if it's launched on time, which will be, I know it's gonna be a little editing here and there, and then I got to also keep myself in check. But once this episode is out, you will have 2 days to enter. But if you listen to this after the contest has ended, don't worry, we'll have more contests in the future. This is actually the first contest we've had in, I want to say ever, but we actually had contests before when Centaku Media was known as Centaku Media before the rebranding. So I'm really excited to get back into the swing of things, and I have some other announcements I'm excited about too, but I'm not going to get into it right now, but that will be in a future episode of the podcast. But some announcements I can talk about right now is that as of August, this is the first episode of August of 2021, obviously, duh. We'll have some lineup changes for the Twitch channel as well. So if you're not following Centaku Media on Twitch, be sure to check it out, Centaku Media at twitch.tv. And we stream 3 weeks out of the month, or 4 weeks, depending on how many weeks are in a month, depending on how it's timed. But the last week of the month, I take a week off just so I can recharge and focus on what needs to be done for the brand as a whole, and just for gaming in general, because, got to take care of yourself as well, and it works out so well, and I totally recommend it if you're that person that does the grind to affiliate, which I know is kind of unnecessary, but it is what it is, I guess. But this month we'll be streaming, continuing with the streams of Shenmue 3 and Persona 5. So Shenmue 3 I stream Wednesdays at 5 p.m. and Persona 5 Thursdays and Friday nights at 9 p.m. And after that, in the second hour or third hour, depending on how you see it, after 2 hours of playing our mainstay games, we'll play at least an hour or two of a different game, in which we'll be playing, as of this month, Final Fantasy XIV on Wednesday. So Wednesday, I'll be streaming Final Fantasy XIV for the first time in about 2 years. I finally caught up with all the MSQs as of patch 5.5, so I can focus on other things here and there. And I'd like to share that excitement with you all, since Endwalker will come out in November. So basically, gonna kill time, try to get myself motivated to keep playing because I'm like slacking off. But I mean, it's a good kind of slacking off considering I put like pretty much a year's time into this already, even though I'm taking my own time with this. But anyway, I'll talk more about 14 later, but other games for this month will be playing Genshin Impact for the first time on Thursday following Persona 5. So Genshin Impact, everyone's talking about this game, and I do have an account, and I kind of got through the first part already, like where you select your initial character, and now I just gotta go to places to do quests. So we'll just continue from where I stopped at as a first playthrough. I might be playing on the PC or PS4 version, we'll find out come the stream day, but yes, Genshin Impact will be a new addition to the channel, and lastly we'll be playing more Pokemon Sword and Shield, in which I need to get through the expansion content. So I'm going through the Isle of Armor right now, so looking forward to that. I'm hoping to do some playing with viewers sessions as well. I got a extension installed on Twitch that will basically let people queue in when they want to play, so I hope that works out. So if I'm a little rusty on that, please forgive me. This is my first time doing something like that, so I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, so yeah, you can check out the schedule, which will be in the description of the podcast episode, and also the show notes as well for anything I talk about in this episode. And lastly, speaking of Twitch, we finally surpassed 50 followers on Twitch, which is one of the requirements to get affiliate on Twitch. The only thing we need are some people to actually watch the channel. And I know that sounds, considering how weird Twitch is and they have discoverability issues, that sounds like I'm begging, but we're like halfway to the 3 required concurrent viewers to become affiliates. So you are welcome to lurk on the channel. If you want to say hi, feel free, but I hope you stick around and watch me make a fool of myself at whatever game I'm playing or doing something I should have done when it was right in front of me. So I really hope you enjoy that. So if you are available at Wednesdays at 5 p.m. or Thursday and Friday at 9 p.m., be sure to stop by the channel, which is twitch.tv/Centaku Media. And that is it for the announcements, and we're about to get into the news segments of the podcast, our main events, if you will. But before that, we're gonna I haven't done this in a while, haven't done like a smooth transition in a while as far as sponsorship is concerned, but we're gonna be doing that. So this is a good stopping point to play a message from our sponsor via anchor.fm, and after that's done, we will get right back into our first segment, which is the anime news segment. So I will see you here in a moment. Have you always wanted to start your own podcast but don't know where to start? Don't have the right equipment? Don't have a place to host your new podcast? If this is you, then you probably haven't heard of Anchor. It's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain how Anchor works. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can also make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Alright, welcome back to the 20th episode of the Centaku Media Journal, where we talk about everything happening in the world of anime, gaming, and music, or other otaku interests. So, to kick off our anime news segment, this is an announcement that everyone's been looking forward to, especially if you're a fan of the Dragon Ball franchise. So, I don't know if you watch all of Dragon Ball Super or read it, or if you are missing out completely, you need to get up on this, because it's actually really exciting. I don't know. Like, I know people were kind of falling out of it because they basically said that, oh, Dragon Ball Super is not the same. I mean, well, it is something that's different, a little different compared to what people are used to, because people don't like new things. I don't know why that is, but as long as there's some involvement of the original cast or staff, I'm fine with it. I know Dragon Ball GT didn't really wasn't really that big because of that. And a lot of things have been twisted a little bit to make it canon that's from Dragon Ball GT. And actually, in regards to Dragon Ball GT, there's actually some of the content that I'm about to talk about concerning Dragon Ball GT, indirectly involving Dragon Ball GT, but I'm just going to get on with it. So, there's going to be a 21 edition number 21 of the Dragon Ball movie, or rather a 21st entry of a movie. Can't speak English, but you know what I'm saying. Basically, it's going to be a movie 21 for the Dragon Ball franchise. So that 21st movie is going to be called Dragon Ball Superheroes. So Dragon Ball Superheroes is, I know, kind of weird because you got super twice in the title. Dragon Ball Superhero, to be exact. I said superheroes, but it's superhero. But you gotta wonder, like, what does that, entail as far as being a superhero? Because we all know that Goku is a superhero, but there's some other characters that are deserving of that chance. I don't know whatever chapter that is now, but the one that came out at the end of July 2021, you all know what I'm talking about. So anyway, I'm not gonna go into that. But anyway, so Dragon Ball Superhero was announced at Comic-Con at Home, which is the virtual edition of the traditional Comic-Con event, which would have been held this year if it weren't for the pandemic. And it probably would have happened even during the pandemic, but now we are actually kind of rolling back some things due to the increased numbers of COVID cases due to the Delta variant. But it is what it is, but people still got a chance to get some announcements that would have been at the con itself, and which is a video, special panel relating to the Dragon Ball franchise. And during the event, we had a couple of staffers that are involved with the Dragon Ball Super anime, including Nosawa herself, who's the voice of Son Goku, and a few other characters that are in the Son family. So they were interviewed and they were asked questions about, details of this upcoming project, which was later revealed to be Dragon Ball Superhero, and they revealed some details, visual details that they've made over the years to try to, I guess, to stay true to the manga, even though that's, always been the case anyway, to an extent. But one of the things they pointed out was that Piccolo's, how he has like a two-tone color arm, like there's pink and green, but now that pink part is going to be yellow moving forward, at least in the movie. And apparently he has a house somewhere in the mountains. And this is something I also posted on Twitter, so you can check that out as well. He has a house and it has a mailbox. So, I don't think Piccolo got mail, but I'm guessing, or you don't think Piccolo's the type of person that would want mail anyway. If he wanted something, he would just go out and get it himself, right, with his flying ability. But I don't know. We'll find out we'll find out at some point of how he got a house to call his own. So that's like one of the details of Piccolo, but we also got some familiar characters, and these are minor characters. So we got Krillin, who is still a police officer from the Broly movie, as we, saw in the Broly movie, I believe. But one of the details of Krillin is that he, has the whites in the back of his eyes now, which, for the longest time, it was the same color as his skin, which, I don't know, made no sense, but they said, let's just fill it in. It's 2021, we gotta make it right. So, that's one of the changes they talked about, is that Krillin had the whites in his eyes, finally. And also, one of the other characters we got to see, all grown up, is Pan. And that was one of the details I was hinting at about Dragon Ball GT, is that you all remember Pan, being who she is, assisting Trunks and Kid Goku on whatever adventure they were on, how ridiculous it was. But in the screenshot, which I also posted on the Twitter account, is that she is dressed up for kindergarten. So she's, I guess, a new student, first year student in kindergarten. I know I keep saying garden, but it's carton. But, so yeah, she's getting ready for her first year of school ever. in this, but we don't know what role she's going to play yet. She'll probably pull a GT at some point and then say, hey, don't forget I can fight too, but I don't know if we'll see this in this movie. And we also got a shot of what looks like 2 new villains in the movie as well, and they're numbered apparently. They got different numbers, and we don't know what motive they have for being where they are. I guess they're going to be a threat to Earth somehow. But that's pretty much all we got from that panel, and they did play a little teaser about what to expect, in which we get a Goku who is rendered in a way that no one expected. So, from what we see is that Goku is rendered in 3D, which, if you play Dragon Ball FighterZ, it actually looks exactly, the way Goku's rendered is exactly like that. So it's like they basically upgraded what they had of Dragon Ball FighterZ and then incorporated it into this movie. So that was like one of the things they were teasing, because Akira Toriyama, when he teased the announcement of the announcement, he said that this will be unlike anything of Dragon Ball you've seen before. So I think this is what he was hinting at. And looks like it's what we're going to get at some point, but I have a feeling there's more details out than from what we've seen so far. But of course, I am a Dragon Ball fan myself, so if I see it, I will report it. So I know there's like a lot of fan art that actually looks on par with what we've seen so far of the concept art, but it looks very convincing. I'm like, no, wait, this is fan art. So yeah. Anyway. I am literally looking forward to this movie, and of course, it comes out next year in 2022, and of course, there was an asterisk in that teaser where it said it depends on wherever the movie is being released at. And, since Dragon Ball has such a powerful fan base in the US, or at least in North America, they will probably get like a simultaneous release, I guarantee you, but of course, I guess it also depends on how this pandemic is going to play out, so that's very likely a factor. So it will come out very soon. We got we're now into August, so we got less than half a year until 2022. So of course, it'll be here before you know it. If not anything, it might come out next June. But of course, it all depends on the way things are going. So look forward to that. I am definitely looking forward to it. And of course, if I see any more news, I will report it in an upcoming episode. So also be sure to check out the screenshots of the panel, and also you can watch the panel in full on their YouTube channel, which will also be linked in the show notes on centakumedia.com, so please look forward to it. And moving on to our next anime news segment, we have news of Mamoru Hosoda's Bell movie, which was his most recent film in recent years. His film received a 14-minute standing ovation at the Cannes Film Festival, which the movie is called Ryoto Sobakatsu no Hime, which translates literally to The Dragon and the Freckled Princess, has received a 14-minute long ovation, which is the longest one of the highest, longest standing ovations that a film has received in the film festival's history. And that's like one of the reputations for the film festivals, that it gets, as long as it does, long of a ovation as it does. So that's actually really good. And an article from Anime News Network compiled a list by Quartz that in 2019, based on contemporary news reports, Bell's standing ovation would be among the longest to be reported in the festival's history, ahead of Michael Moore's Bowling for Columbine and behind Nadine Labaki's Capernaum and Lee Daniels' The Paperboy. Quartz also notes that the list is not comprehensive and is only a sampling of some of the films whose applause lists were documented at the time. And so, as far as to how Bell got to be a part of the film festival, it said it had been selected for the premiere section at the 74th Annual Film Festival and had its global premiere at the festival on July 15th, which also marks the official selection, the first official selection at the festival for Hosoda, who's the director of the previous film Mirai. It was selected for a Cannes Directors Fortnight, an independent section held in parallel to the festival in 2018. After the speech concluded to rapturous applause, Hosoda, who was not originally scheduled for a post-screening speech, expressed his heartfelt thanks to the audience. I was really relieved for Bell to be seen by the audience for the first time in the world, and to receive so much applause as well. I think this film has a unique flavor even among the Cannes Film Festival selections, but to have it supported in this place where people who love film gather is very encouraging and gives me strength. This film is a blessing, Hosoda remarked after the screening. And also, the movie marks the 10th anniversary of Hosoda's animation studio Chisu. And the studio describes the story as our protagonist, Susu, a 17-year-old high school girl who lives in the countryside of Kochi Prefecture with her father after losing her mother at a young age. She loves singing with her mother more than anything, but as a result of her death, as a result of her mother's death, was no longer able to sing. It wasn't long before she and her father grew more and more distant from each other, and Susu closed her heart to the rest of the world. When Susu felt that writing music was her only purpose left in life, she then discovers a massive online space known as You, where she takes on her persona Belle. Another me, another reality, we are no longer limited to a single world. Suzu quickly realizes that when she is inside You, as her avatar Belle, she can sing quite naturally. As she continues to showcase her own music in the virtual world, she becomes a rising star of You. Nonetheless, that surprise is short-lived. Suddenly, a mysterious dragon-shaped creature appears before her. So the film previously opened in Japan on July 16th, and is the first of Hosoda's films to receive IMAX screenings. G-Kids licensed the film for North American release, and will release the film in English with Japanese, and in Japanese-English subtitles this winter. So congratulations to Hosoda for his latest project, and actually it sounds very, like I would actually probably get sad when I watch it, and actually, what's another anime series in maybe greater than in the past few years that you think of that's involved music? So in the past, in the previous episode of the podcast, I talked about Carol and Tuesday, which is about these two girls that are in the pursuit of music because that's their passion, but they're in a world where it's kind of frowned upon. If you're doing it from the heart, it's basically a no-no, but you basically go after these AIs that help you become a singer, even if you don't have the talent to do it. All you gotta do is have the motivation to go through with it. So that's, I guess, one of the few anime series that I can think of that's about music, but I'm curious to see if there are any other anime that's about music I'm missing out on. I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah, Kiss on a Slope. I think that's one too, because our previous contributor, Robo, our name is New. I forget his other name, but he goes by name is New. But he was a previous contributor on Centaku Media back in the day, and that's actually one of his favorite animes. And that's one show I had on my radar, but I just hadn't gotten a chance to watch it. But now that I mention it, I probably have to watch it just to see how good it is. But oh yeah, and Beck, so Beck. So that's not really that many series I can think of. So Beck, probably Kids on the Slope, and then Carol and Tuesday definitely I recommend, which was actually one of my recommended viewings for July 4th. But it can be watched anytime, so I hope you check it out. It is on Netflix, as I've talked about in the previous episode. So yes, I'm also looking forward to Belle when it's released. So congratulations again for an excellent movie. So, to close out the anime news segment, we got another, I guess what you call it, established anime, a prestigious anime series, that's actually coming, to a few streaming services. I know I'm kind of losing my, what am I talking about? Guys, I'm trying to think. Oh, wait, this is actually on one service, but it's actually coming on another service. But what I'm about to talk about is Evangelion. So Neon Genesis Evangelion, the final movie, will be on Amazon Prime in over 240 countries, subbed and dubbed this month. So the final movie, Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 1.0 Thrice Upon a Time finally, it was finally released in Japan after multiple delays. Not just because of COVID, but some other, I guess, creative differences from what I remember, because I actually watched like the first 3 compilation movies, the most recent compilation movies in theaters, back when they had limited screenings, and we even saw a couple of them in Chattanooga, but the last one took a very long time for some reason, and it was because of some kind of issue with the studio, some kind, I guess, creative differences or licensing or staffing or something. I have to find it. I didn't think about it when I recorded this episode, but yeah, it was delayed for several reasons, not just because of the pandemic. But the rights holder, Studio Kara, is also known for taking a long time in approving its works for international release. I think that's why, but I think there were some more reasons too besides that. But anyway, Thrice Upon a Time will be on Prime Video on August 13th, which was announced on the official Evangelion website. And this treat is strictly for overseas fans, as the movie will be available for users of Amazon's video service in over 240 countries. Of course, not in Japan, where it's still playing in theaters. Kind of like, I guess, with Hathaway, because I think it's about to finish its run, but it also ended with at least over 2 billion yen, which is about to surpass the second Mobile Suit Gundam movie, Encounters in Space, which is, again, I'm biased. Congratulations to Hathaway for, creeping up on that feat. Anyway, moving back to EVA. While a complete list of 240-plus countries have not been made available, the news on Amazon's site was so broken by the UK division, which adds that Thrice Upon a Time will offer subtitles in 28 different languages and also optional dubbed dialogue in English, French, German, Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, and 4 other languages. And here the article that's from Rocket News. The subtly different title of Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.0 seemingly implies that the Amazon Prime version will incorporate the retouch animation of the enhanced version that began showing in Japanese theaters sometime after the original Evangelion 3.0 and 1.0.1 release. Amazon Prime will also be streaming the 3 previous rebuild of Evangelion movies for anyone who wants to revisit the earlier installments of the tetralogy. Well, tetralogy? Oh, tetralogy. No, tetralogy. There we go. The announcement was also accompanied by a message from the creator of Evangelion, Hideaki Anno. I'd like to thank every EVA fan in the world for your continued support. We are looking for the best way to offer the movie to fans overseas as early as possible in a challenging situation with movie theaters during the pandemic, and are happy to have found Prime Video as a partner to stream it globally. We highly recommend watching it on a big TV screen for the best viewing experience. So, yes, definitely any movie, especially with a lot of action and mech, you gotta watch it on the big screen. So, keep that in mind. August 15th is when it launches. It might be earlier in the US. I don't know, because you know how the US is. And it's Amazon, if they're partnering with Amazon. So, of course, Amazon's a US company, so they have first dibs on what they want to do. But that wouldn't be fair, wouldn't it? But it's Amazon, y'all. So, I don't know. But, look forward to that one. And also, when I said, oh yeah, this is on a different platform, the redub of the original Evangelion series is also on Netflix, so I think it's on Netflix, and I mean to watch it, so that's something I probably need to do soon for a review project. And speaking of a review project, last year I held a poll on CentakuMedia.com on what anime series do y'all want me to watch to review, and the winner ended up being Code Geass, right? Well, let's just say that the review is long overdue, and it might be coming very soon. So I'm trying to catch up on some recordings, and also with that 2 episodes back, I did a 5-minute review on Hathaway's Flash. So I might do this for Code Geass because I finally have an opinion of it. And to some people, you might be either relieved or disappointed in my thoughts of Code Geass. So stay tuned. I'm not going to hint at any spoilers or what I think of it, but when that episode drops, be sure to, I'm hoping you'll be subscribed to the podcast in one way or another, whether on the socials or this podcast, whatever platform you're listening to, like on Spotify. You'll know when it comes out. That concludes it for the anime news segment, and next we will be talking about gaming news. And one of them, which I hinted at in the intro, is about a game that I am really excited to even have news on. And I've talked about this in previous episodes of the one game in the longest running JRPG franchise that appears to get no love other than the sequel game and the franchise, which was kind of but somehow that's like people's first Final Fantasy game they've played, in which, oops, I spoiled it. So it's Final Fantasy. But what is that game, though, I'm about to hint at? So, Final Fantasy X in particular. So the sequel I'm talking about is Final Fantasy X-2, which apparently a lot of people, even my friend, that was her first game she played, was Final Fantasy X-2, but then she went back to playing Final Fantasy X, and yeah, so I'm like, well, of course she loves it, like, that's both our favorite games, like, that's all we'll talk about. Like, she even questioned my loyalty of Final Fantasy X, because back, like, in the first few years when Final Fantasy 15 was a thing, I mean, it's still a thing, but it's died down considerably since it was released. She asked me, what is her favorite Final Fantasy game of all time? And I'm like, well, I do like 15, but, you know, I still have this place in my heart for 10. And she said, good answer. Good answer. So, yes, it's a good answer. And I know, like, a lot of people, well, there's different opinions about a lot of things. So I know a lot of people don't like 10 because they said the story doesn't make sense and stuff. But they say that for every game. And if you look, you know, if you look behind their backs, they'll probably end up praising Final Fantasy VII. And Final Fantasy VII is actually a game I'm not very fond of, so I am sorry if I offend anyone, or if you feel threatened to unfollow me, I'm sorry. That's your loss. But no, Final Fantasy VII, I'm not a big fan of. I played the original Final Fantasy VII, I was like, But then again, maybe it was because I came into the franchise too late, because my first game was actually 8. But Final Fantasy X was actually the first Final Fantasy game I beaten. It was the second game I played, but the first one I beaten. So yeah, spoiler alert, I haven't finished Final Fantasy VIII, but that's something I would like to do in the future. But Final Fantasy X is my favorite Final Fantasy series of all time. And like I said, I can go on about it. I'm about to, but we're gonna go on to why I'm talking about it. It's because, and just in time for the 20th anniversary, which was on July 21st, the series creator, the director behind Final Fantasy X, Tetsuya Nomura, who's also involved with Final Fantasy VII, as well as the remake, which is currently on the eve or whatever of the remastered Part 2 release. He basically said that Final Fantasy X-3 is a very strong possibility after they're done with everything relating to Final Fantasy VII Remake. And this has been teased on and off a handful of times in the past almost decade now. So why do they need a Final Fantasy X-3? And I would say it, and I'm trying to explain it without spoiling it for those that haven't played Final Fantasy X. I recommend y'all playing Final Fantasy X because it's on every single platform available. Like, it's on Steam. You can get the remastered version on PS4. It's on Switch. It's on Xbox. Come on, y'all. No excuses. But, or you can just watch a playthrough of it, in which I actually finished the remastered version back in June. So if you missed that, I apologize. I do have like a highlight reel of some stupid stuff that happened during my stream, like, you know, witty things like some of the characters say and all that stuff. So I've been meaning to work on that, so I hope to have that up on the YouTube channel in the future. But anyway, Final Fantasy X-3, the reason it would happen, and it's actually also highlighted in a video I'm linking in the show notes on the website, which you can get in the show description, to the link, that is. There's two videos by Final Fantasy Union that explains the curious cases of Final Fantasy X-3, as well as a X-0. So, Final Fantasy X, of course, is the base Final Fantasy X game, right? So, you pretty much before the concept of sequels of any Final Fantasy game became a thing, you know, it would just be one game and that's it, and they move on to the next numbered Final Fantasy game. Well, I think it was all because of 10 that we started getting sequels to almost every game in the series. So, so we don't have a proper Final Fantasy 12 sequel yet. It was a remake, the Zodiac Age, or whatever it's called, the Zodiac Age. And then Final Fantasy 13 had 3, and one in which the third one was very bad. And then of course 14, it has we're about to get 4 expansion packs. The 4th expansion pack in 14. 15 doesn't have a sequel, but it might not have a sequel because of how iffy the release was to begin with. Because we got the movie, and then we got the expansion packs for each of the Truckle Bros, Sons Noctis, which is basically his game, and then we got the novel. So I think there's no need for a sequel. But if it is, I'm all for it as long as it makes sense. But Final Fantasy X in particular, 2.10.2 is kind of hard to explain without spoiling it, but basically it's kind of unnecessary. But I think even with Final Fantasy X, Final Fantasy X-2 rather, it actually sealed all of the issues that were present in 10, as far as the story. And when the remastered version came out, we had an audio drama, which I think it's about 15 minutes long, 20 minutes long, which you can probably just listen to on YouTube, but it's also in the remastered version as well. I believe it's called Will, and it kind of angered some people because why is this a thing? Like, there's a few things that were mentioned in it that, like I said, I don't want to spoil it, but would also invite the possibility of a 10.3. And actually, one of the biggest things I'm waiting for is that they revisit some of the characters. And one of my favorite characters, and like I said, I want to say it. And for those that actually listen to this and they know me, they know what character I'm talking about. But I will just go ahead and say it. So, Auron, who is one of the first characters you see in the beginning of Final Fantasy X, he's there. He's an important support character, and he's been through most of the issues that are present in Final Fantasy X. And even after all said and done, there's still some questions. I'm like, well, it would have been nice if we got this about him or that about him. So that's what I would like to see with a Final Fantasy X-3 or Final Fantasy X-0. Now, Final Fantasy X-0 would have been the prequel to Final Fantasy X, which involves Auron, but also if they went ahead and just did a Final Fantasy X-3, that could basically serve as a prequel and a sequel, depending on how they do it. And like I said, there's more stuff I want to talk about, but it includes massive spoilers. They could incorporate that, basically make elements of a X-0 into a X-3, so that way it would make sense. But anyway, so the announcement is that, from what's going on is that the concept has actually been written for a Final Fantasy X-3, which will happen after they're done with Final Fantasy VII, and this was actually translated from an article in Famitsu magazine. Again, like I said, it was just in time for the 20th anniversary. So, let's think about it. No one knew that Kingdom Hearts 3 was going to happen. They said, we've been waiting for Kingdom Hearts 3 for almost 15 years. But that was because Nomura was so busy on 15, or what at the time was versus 13, and it became 15, and he removed himself from the project after some disagreements, as he wanted the game to go a different tone from what we used to in 15. And then he went back. He just said, you know what, we're going to go back to Kingdom Hearts 3. So that's what happened. So we went to work on Kingdom Hearts 3. That's finally done. After Kingdom Hearts 3 is done, we got Final Fantasy VII Remake. Part of that is done. We got part 1, and then we got that retrograde, or whatever it's called. It involves Yuffie, right? And then now we're close to getting the part 2 of the remake. So I don't know how much more remake there is, and I hope it's not long. Again, I'm not really biased for 7, so I'm sorry if I'm dissing on it, but yeah, I don't have this connection to 7 as most people do. Of course, obviously it's 10, and yeah, I hope it's very soon. And for Nomura to say that they're basically got the concepts written, I'm so excited about it, because there's some questions that need to be answered, and like I said, I want to talk about it so badly with someone that's familiar with it. My friend, I can just talk to my friend about it, but I'm just really curious to see what this entails. So I'm sorry. I probably shouldn't apologize. I'm thinking this is my podcast, but that's pretty much the whole story. It's not really much to the story, but basically too long didn't listen that Nomura is working on the concept of it, but he won't actually give it his full attention until Final Fantasy VII Remake is done. But you also got to remember that he's also working on Final Fantasy Origin, that Origin game that was announced at E3 that people were like, are you serious? So, you can tell what a game is going to suffer in quality, and hopefully it's not 10.3. So, that is it for that news concerning Final Fantasy X-3. And also be sure to check out the video I have linked from Final Fantasy Union that talks about both games. And it's very interesting because there were also varying reasons on why they didn't pursue a Final Fantasy X-3 immediately. Like in a few first 5 years after the release of X-2, and it's kind of ridiculous, considering what we've had in recent years. I'm just going to let you listen to that, but it's very interesting, so be sure to check it out. So, that's enough about my news of Final Fantasy X-3. We are going to talk about, we're going to go back to anime news, but still gaming related. So, this one is of a announced Gundam game that is actually a 6-on-6 shooter, which is kind of in the style of, I want to say Overwatch. So basically it's Gundam Overwatch, as people have said on Twitter when the news broke. So it's of course, a team-based shooter, and it's slated for 2022, an international release as well. So that's very interesting. So Bandai Namco Online announced that Gundam Evolution, which is a new first-person shooter game that will launch next year in multiple countries, where players can pilot mobile suits with its own unique capabilities from the franchise, and experience speedy, immersive 6 versus 6 online battles. And also, the game will be available on Windows 10. And the staff currently lists a 64-bit Japanese version. It will be free to play with fees for items, so kind of like, your typical pay to play, or no, pay to win, I guess, kind of thing. But I think it's more of, from what it sounds like, it's probably going to be for cosmetics, kind of like with Overwatch. So I hope that's the case. But the current mobile suits I have listed so far, which is 12 of them, they got the original Gundam, the Saku 2, Sazabi, GM Sniper 2, Dom Trooper, Gun Tank, Pale Rider, Gundam Barbatos, Mythos, I don't know if I forgot for that, Ashimar, Attorney Gundam, and the GM Gundam. And the company will hold a closed beta test for PC users in Japan on August 8th and 9th, and the game's official website is accepting 5,000 applicants. So there's apparently a live stream right after this was announced, and I totally forgot to check it out just for context, but I'm kind of waiting to see what the beta is going to be like. So that is exciting, and of course, Overwatch is my jam, but not so much my jam after recent events. That was actually streamed on the channel along with StarCraft, but none of those games will be streamed in the near future. So, anyway, that is it for Gundam. For Gundam Overwatch, which I'm actually looking forward to instead of actual Overwatch. So, a few other news. I got a few other news, more than usual. I'm kind of tempted to skip over some of them, but these are I'm probably going to give them an honorable mention. So, the next story is of Atlus planning to bring events relating to the Persona series outside of Japan. So, in a previous interview with Famitsu Magazine, Atlus director Naoto Hiraoka shared that the company has plans for Persona-related events in Japan and overseas. Additionally, the interview revealed that Atlus will further invest in Vanillaware games and other Atlus IPs. The company is currently working on a variety of titles and hopes to deliver some surprises in the future. Additionally, Hiraoka was quoted as saying that he would like to, quote, announce some surprises outside of announcements related to the 25th anniversary of the Persona series. However, information regarding these potential surprise announcements has yet to be shared. The interview also revealed that Atlus currently has a variety of titles under development that the company would like to deliver soon. The interview reveals that a total of 10 projects are currently in development. This includes projects involving Vanillaware and other collaborations with Atlus. 5 to 6 projects are being handled internally at Atlus. Updates regarding Project Re-Fantasy were shared as well. The development on the title is currently progressing slowly. More information regarding the mentioned Persona-related events from Atlus will arrive at a later date. In July of 2021, Atlas opened a website to celebrate the 25th anniversary of the franchise, and the website features a total of 7 unannounced projects relating to the series. And Atlas currently plans to announce the mentioned projects up until autumn of 2022. The first announcement was set to arrive in September of 2021. But apparently, this wasn't mentioned in the article, but Persona 6 has been teased as well. So, it's probably going to be for the PS5, because it seems like, well, Persona 5, which again is going to be a shameless plug, which is currently what I'm playing on Twitch. It's my first Persona game, right? Previous Persona game was released on the PS3, which was Persona 4. And I think before that, I'm pretty sure we had Persona 3 on a PS2, but I'm guessing that didn't get real received because it was so niche at the time. But now, Persona is kind of like getting up there now because of how a lot of people paying attention to games like this. I mean, guys, apparently, it's cool to be into Japanese, anime style, or just an anime in general. So people are paying more attention to games like this. And also, it's interesting. The game is interesting. And sometimes I kick myself for not appreciating Persona sooner, because it calls itself a live sim as well, besides an RPG, because I do like sims, and just sim games in general, rather. And one of the games that got me really hooked was Harvest Moon. And when I read a game magazine, I think it was Games and Tips or something like that, back in the day, I said, "Oh, I want this game. It's a farming sim." And I was so like, I would read an article like every day until I got it. And it was a Nintendo 64 game, y'all. So just, it wasn't easy. Apparently, it was hard to find for a while. And of course, it's like $70 at the time. I'm like, okay. But it was worth the $70 because I played the heck out of it. Up until, I think I played like the 5 years in the game until one of my animals died. I'm like, I'm done with this. But I played it a few more times in the times that I've had my Nintendo 64 plugged in. And I actually I wish Natsume would re-release it or like remaster it. But of course, the closest game we got so far is not even a Natsume product, but of course it's Stardew Valley, which is... It's funny because it seems like it's inspired by Harvest Moon, but people don't even mention it, don't even acknowledge Harvest Moon. And I know I'm going off topic, I was talking about Persona, but I was talking about the kind of games I like. So that game, Persona, would have like, oh, I really gotta play this game. It's an RPG too, because, I've enjoyed Final Fantasy. I've played other RPGs, not Final Fantasy related too, so I'm like, I gotta play this, but... Well, at least, I'm glad that they're actually paying attention to their fans, and they are actually, wanting to like from what it sounds like, they want to re-release the previous games too. But there's also Persona 1 and 2, which there was a Kotaku article that mentioned that, oh yeah, apparently they knew they forgot that it existed, so yeah, we're gonna talk about it at some point. So like, that's funny. So Persona 1 and 2, that'll be interesting. But anyway, I'm looking forward to what Atlas has in store for the Persona franchise in the next year. So, of course, if there's anything about it, I'll talk about it, because Persona is going to be my scope moving forward. And I'm also, like, I know I probably don't cover enough scopes on this podcast or just on Centaku Media in Journal, but I do plan on, like, having where people can sign up and also share their interests, as well as a form for blog posts again, which I've done in the past, but... Just stay tuned for that. We're trying to work out something where it'll be easy for everyone to either, get, attribution for it. That's the word I'm looking for. Anyway, continue on with our gaming news segment. So, I guess I'll go over it briefly because we kind of know about it. So, not too long ago, Nintendo announced their new Switch model, which has an OLED screen. Well, no one expected that same day Valve would announce a new device called the Steam Deck. And people were like, well, that's bad timing, so like, why did you announce this when I just pre-ordered the OLED enhanced model of the Switch? So the Steam Deck, of course, is what you think it is. It's basically a handheld device that runs Steam, that actually is shaped like, kind of similar to the Switch. I know, but it's like it's more on the bulky side. I think maybe it's has the same level of bulkiness as either the Vita or PSP. But basically, any game that you've downloaded on Steam, you can play it on your Steam Deck, and it's actually caught some attention of some Final Fantasy 14 players. So they're basically saying, we can play Final Fantasy 14 in places you wouldn't expect. I'm not going to say what they are. I'm pretty sure you're thinking, oh, we can play Final Fantasy 14 anywhere, huh? So in anywhere, emphasis on anywhere. That means even places like, it's kind of, shocking to even mention on a show. But, but yeah, so that's a possibility too, but it might be kind of limited. So I think there's still a lot we don't know about the Steam Deck. But other than it has your typical buttons on the gamepad, you got the 2 thumbsticks, set of 4 buttons, which has a similar Xbox labeling of the A, B, X, Y, 2 triggers, 2 shoulder buttons, and a directional pad. And apparently there's a couple other front-mounted buttons for accessing the pause and the system features. The pause menu and the system features. And apparently, from the article, it says that there are 2 touchpad-style surfaces right next to each thumbstick, which should be especially handy for games that aren't as controller-friendly. And the handheld also sports 4 rear-mounted buttons, similar to the paddles you find on the Xbox Elite or some other high-end controller. So, they also mentioned that the Steam Deck's resolution in handheld mode is limited to 720p, which is not really bad from what they say, but a 7-inch screen. And since games will still look sharp on a display that size, and lower resolution means they'll run better even with an array of fancy graphics features switch on. And they also said that, as with the Switch, you can also play it on a bigger screen with a USB-C connection add-on. But, yeah, so it's up to you whether that's a buy for you. Apparently, it's I heard of stories about pre-order. People were like pre-ordering it and also like reselling it for a higher price, and then basically saying, no, you can't do that. So just be aware of who you make a purchase from. I think the pre-orders were iffy. I don't know the exact details of it, but considering that it was announced as the same day as the OLED model of the Switch, I'm like, not a good look. And also, what kills me is that the name Steam Deck, I got so confused when I read this, because there's another product that Corsair's Elgato brand makes called the Stream Deck, and I was like, what the heck? So the Stream Deck, for those that don't know, is a device which is almost as much as a Switch. There's also light versions of it. You can buy less than that, but it's still kind of high. But it's a good investment if you're a hardcore streamer. It's basically you use it for streaming. If you like run a Twitch channel or YouTube, basically you have access to controls where you can just press this button and it takes everything, does everything at once. Like if you want to change the scene without having to minimize the windows. So I'm going to minimize this and go to this, minimize that and go to that. So basically with the Stream Deck, you have it right in front of you and press that button and it takes care of that for you right there. And you can assign like hotkeys to it too, in case you got like hotkeys tied to another command in whatever game you're playing. So it's really cool. But if you can't afford anything like that, there's a Stream Deck app that Elgato has, which is what I use for the streams. And it's like $3 a month, and you get like the basic features you would get on this actual full Stream Deck. But I guess it's a good idea for that if you're like on the fence of buying an expensive product like that. It's a good way to get, it's a good way to get introduced to a product like that. But so yeah, that's why I got a little confused. And apparently, on the same day, Elgato did reveal a new model of the Stream Deck. So I'm like, oh boy. So that's not really a good look for either Valve or Elgato. So anyway, yeah. So that's all that news about the Steam Deck and Stream Deck. I forgot the name of the new Stream Deck model, but yeah, all that was announced on the same day. So that's really crazy. But moving on, this is actually I think it's the last news article for gaming. And we got a couple of interest news too to talk about still. So this one is a another Netflix story, because I talked about Netflix quite a bit in the last episode. But this is probably going to be like that for a while, because they're kind of like the powerhouse of streaming anyway. They're like one of the first ones to enter the streaming market, besides YouTube and Google or whatever. So Netflix is going to add games to all subscriptions at no extra cost. And the company revealed in the second quarter earnings report that will add these to probably mobile devices. It says initially it will be primarily focused on games for mobile devices. And they also mentioned, the article from A&N mentioned this is a part of a larger push into games by the company after announcing last week that it hired former EA and Oculus executive Mike Furdu as the vice president of game development. Netflix didn't reveal what games it will add or when it will launch. And of course, so one of these we all know about is that one of the special Black Mirror episodes, Bandersnatch, was actually an interactive game where basically you choose an ending. So if you get the bad ending, you gotta watch it again to get the good ending, which I totally recommend. I love Black Mirror. It's like, I don't really talk about a lot of Western stuff that much, but Black Mirror is probably right up my alley too, as far as this nerdy stuff, but it's like a modern day Twilight Zone. So I would totally recommend watching that show, but Bandersnatch in particular, it was a lot of fun, so I recommend that. And of course, they also mentioned that Stranger Things has also inspired multiple games. That's one show I don't watch. My friends do, but it's probably a show I'm missing out on. But one show at a time, y'all. One show at a time. They also mentioned that the company reported lower than expected subscriber additions for the second quarter of 2021, but also reported U.S. Hold on, why is this cut off? Yeah, it also reported U.S. dollars $7.34 billion in revenue, which was higher than expected for forecast. But this isn't the first time Netflix. So, like I said, when I said this isn't the first time Netflix has talked about gaming. So when I read this, I'm like, wait, didn't Netflix tease this before? And if I feel so old in saying this, but it actually was. They actually have mentioned this before, and it was actually in 2012. Or rather 2011 when it was first announced, but it was finally decided on in 2012 on what they were going to do with it. So, in an article on The Verge, which is a follow-up story to end all the speculations of the story that first came out in 2011, is that Netflix was going to expand into gaming rentals. So that means in addition to DVD rentals, they will also add gaming on their subscription service, which is kind of like GameFly, because GameFly, I think, is already expensive as it is. And I think they're probably on their way of dying out anyway, because, you can just basically download games from like PlayStation Network or the Switch. And I know PlayStation has that PlayStation Now service where you can basically stream games for a flat subscription fee. But yeah, they were going to add like physical games to their subscription service with DVDs, and it was going to be called Quickster, which is QWIKSTER. So they decided in 2012 that they were not going to expand to renting games. And CEO Reed Hastings confirmed to investors that when he announced that he told his investors that he wasn't going to expand. And it was announced in September 2011 that it was going to spin off. So that's what it was. They were going to focus on the streaming market. I think it was like the beginning of their focus on streaming, like original streaming programming, and then have their DVD by mail business separate. So it's kind of like that already with it's called DVD.com, which is still part of Netflix. So you can still have DVD. They still have DVD rentals, but you have to pay a separate fee. It's not incorporated with the streaming fee anymore. And apparently people were even upset about that. But, video games were still offered as a possibility, but apparently they said, no, we're not going to do it. So, yeah, so now you have it. Netflix did attempt this before with video games, but apparently they were working on mobile devices. So, that's interesting. So, yeah, we'll keep y'all posted on, what they exactly plan to add to their games lineup. So, yeah, anyway, that is it for our gaming news. Alright, so our last segment of this episode of the podcast is our interests, news, and entertainment. I think it's mostly interest stories this time around. And, of course, if you're tired of BTS, you won't find any here. I'm sorry. I love BTS, but I noticed, I'm trying to find a decent story to talk about involving BTS instead of just, oh, look, Suga sneezed today. What did it sound like? I mean, it's really ridiculous. And I'm not going to call out any one of my usual news sources, because they do a good job putting out what they want to. Because there are some fans that actually go through that will go that far to find something out like that. But I'm like, no, like no, like I love ETS, but I'm like, no, so I don't need to know what color they dyed it here. If anything, I'm trying to like, I guess, tweak my sources a little bit as far as some stories goes. Like, there's some good stories that one of the sources I'm trying not to mention, they put out that's actually worth reading, but like mostly it's like it's just the same group. We get the same like news about the group several times a day, if not maybe 24 times a day. I'm like, we want a little bit of variety. So I'm sorry, that was an unintentional grunt because I'm trying to move my seat forward, and it's probably they'll probably be hard to edit out. So I apologize in advance, or in the past. So yes, it's just like I'm trying to find something with a little bit more variety, because one of these sources, they just talk about K-pop music, but not K-pop as a whole. So like, even I like to see drama news too. So I'm trying to cover more drama news as well, and also the same goes for J-pop, because J-pop news is kind of a rarity nowadays, and like not really a rarity, and rather not nowadays. So I actually got to retract that, but I guess it's not really quite that many sources where they talk about J-pop, but yeah, there's a kind of growing number of places now where you can talk about J-pop, even official sources. Like in the last episode, I talked about Johnny's. Like, they finally launched an English language Twitter account. But of course, almost every single comment said, "When are you gonna have this on Spotify? When are you gonna even have a Spotify presence?" So anyway, so yeah, that's kind of where I'm dealing with now as far as trying to find K-pop and J-pop stories to talk about from sources that actually have that balance, so I can also deliver that to you as well. But we're not going to talk about, we are going to talk about music today, but it won't be of J-pop or K-pop variety. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But this one story actually is something I probably need to talk a bit more of on the channel. Not really the channel, but the podcast. And this one was interesting. It's kind of dumb in the end, but I figured I would go ahead and talk about it anyway. But that's, what's going on is that we had a convention recently. Not we, but rather in the US, we had a convention. One of the few conventions that have returned in 2021, in a almost post-COVID environment, even though like things are kind of going back to where they were, even though we have the protection against it. But of course, we're not going to go into detail about that. But that was an event in the DC area called BlurredCon, and I think it's like in a DMV area. Of course, if it's in DC, it's in what they call a DMV area, which is DC, Maryland, and Virginia. So basically, if you go to Katsucon, that's the DMV area. So BlurredCon was held recently, in not last weekend, but in the past few weeks. It was held. And BlurredCon, for those that don't know what that means it's a cross between the word black and nerd. So basically, it's a convention that's centered towards, or rather dedicated towards, black nerds, such as myself. For those that hadn't, if they couldn't tell, I'm also a POC content creator myself. But that's what BlurredCon is. It's basically a gathering of black creators, whether they are streamers, artists, cosplayers, and everything you can think of. That's what the convention's for. It's just like any other convention, but it's like a celebration of those that don't get very much attention compared to the other mainstream conventions. And it's actually something I would really like to go to someday, but it's just like, I really like some cons I'm comfortable going to with friends or by myself. Well, I'd rather go with new conventions I never heard of with friends, but also I'm familiar with cons I'll go to by myself, like AWA, which is kind of weird. Like before, like years ago, I wouldn't go to AWA by myself, but I had to at least meet up with friends so I can let's do this and do that. But maybe someday I would like to attend someday. I'll probably must have the courage to go by myself, but it's I recommend going if you haven't, because of the kind of convention it is. Like, yes, I like to see more events like that. And there's also another one that was held recently in Texas. That's actually started by RDC World. I'm sure y'all familiar with their content on YouTube, where they do a lot of what if these anime characters were on a reality show? Those kind of videos, and it's actually hilarious. I recommend checking them out. But it's called DreamCon. It was in Arlington, Texas, at the Esports Arena, and they had both a virtual and in-person event. And from what I've heard, it's a huge success. So I hope to go someday. I think they had. I don't know if they're gonna do the virtual aspect again next year, but I hope to see some good come out of this convention, this new convention, especially one that are ran by persons of color as well. So, but what I'm talking about BlurredCon is that there was some controversy recently concerning the winner of the cosplay contest. So I totally forgot. I don't have the video pulled up right now. But there's a YouTuber who goes by the name Hirohei. He did a video about this controversy concerning a white cosplayer that won the costume contest. So now, with BlurredCon, you expect that it's only for black people, right? No, I mean, it's in the interest of black people, but everyone is welcome as long as they don't hold any prejudice towards persons of color at the event, right? So, this is actually, what happens actually the opposite of that. So, some, from what it sounds like, non-attendees were complaining about the decision to award the victory to a white attendee who actually did everything by scratch. Like, the judges looked at her and they said, oh, we like this and we like that. And so she did everything, she did everything right and they liked it. So, they had to give her an award. So what happened is that when they found out that the winner of the grand prize was white, people were not having it. And they were saying, why did you do this, BlurredCon? This is supposed to be our event. Blurred, they basically schooled them on what blurred meant. And it basically spiraled out of control. And even people were accusing the participants, saying that, oh, she bought that costume. She store-bought that costume. And so it even looks wrinkled from the picture. But it actually, it's hard to tell. But even if they're saying that it looks store-bought, that means they actually haven't seen it themselves. Or that they haven't actually went to the event themselves. So I'm like, interesting. But the people that were there, they were like, yes, good job. And even the judges chimed in on social media saying that, yes, we saw this, with our own eyes. And yes, she deserved that prize because she actually went out of her way to make it. So, of course, again, the judges, of course, being the kind of what it is, are all black, persons of color, rather. But, yeah, so if they say that she did a good job, then she did a good job. But again, you shouldn't gatekeep. Like, this is I guess a reason why BlurredCon is even in existence, because there are some conventions, probably not really big, well-known conventions, but just the idea that, hey, why are we giving, let's give our own people some attention rather than going to a con and seeing the same, thing, if you know what I mean. So even the chairman of BlurredCon chimed in and said, we can't do that because that would be discrimination, y'all, So yes, this con is ran by us for us, but everyone is welcome and we can't, basically turn people away because this is pretty much the same reasons I mentioned. It's kind of ridiculous, but yeah, so I really I thought this whole story was kind of interesting because why are you doing that? So I thought, why are y'all doing that? But I'm glad that the chairman actually said something about it. So basically, if the judges knew what they're doing and she won, and cool, congratulations to the cosplayer that won the costume contest. But this is kind of the issues with people complaining about every little thing that doesn't affect them, and especially for stuff like that, cosplay, especially creatives, is really, irritating, because, as a content creator, whether it's cosplay or artist, they basically said, oh, I don't think this is a good idea. I've kind of hinted at this over the years about some issues I've had with another content creator that basically didn't even bother looking at my work and it said, oh, I don't think this is good. So yeah, actually kind of ruffle some feathers in that standpoint, but the whole idea of it's ridiculous. So I have the link to the video in the show notes, which you can find in your to the link. You can find the link in your description on whatever platform you're listening to see the video. But the YouTuber, his name is Hiro Hey, and they normally put out content that talks about drama that's going on in like Discord or Twitter when it comes to like people claiming certain things that it's not, supposed to be that way. When you think about it, once you see that video and check out the rest of his content, you'll see what I mean. But it's actually interesting to watch. His videos are normally short, no more than 2 minutes long, but this one was actually several minutes long, so that was like, interesting. So he had to have more than 2 minutes to talk about this situation. But yeah, be sure to check out that video, and to actually end off our episode, and especially if you're into the Olympics. So with that said, I'm going to talk about, I guess to recap the Olympic Games, the beginning, opening ceremonies of the Olympics. So with it being held in Tokyo, of course, you got to have some Japanese pop culture, goodness incorporated. So, the opening ceremonies, I guess during the Parade of Nations, they played various songs from a lot of Japanese video games and anime. Or rather, video game themes. They're actually all video games. Or rather, I guess, anime-inspired gaming series. But you'll see. But anyway, Anime News Network, they had posted a full article from, that was translated from Nikon Sports. There was like at least 24 of these, but just to limit the time, I'm gonna narrow down to like 7 that you might be familiar with. So, one of the songs played during the opening ceremonies, it was Dragon Quest, Overture of Lotus Theme, the Victory Fanfare from Final Fantasy. Of course, that would be kind of funny if they play that, from, I guess, every time Japan wins a gold medal, or just a gold medal victory in general. And then we got Sore's theme, Purity from the Tales of series, Proof of a Hero from Monster Hunter, Olympus Coliseum, which is very fitting from the Kingdom Hearts games, Frog's theme from Chrono Trigger, and finally Starlight Zone from Sonic the Hedgehog, to name several from the full list of songs that were played during the opening ceremonies. And apparently there were a few songs that were pulled at the last minute, or rather several songs that were pulled at the last minute before the ceremonies. According to Anime News Network, Ghost in the Shell Arise composer Keigo Oyamada, also known as Cornelius, resigned on the Monday before the event as a composer for the ceremony a few days before the start. The composer for Dragon Quest, Koichi Sugiyama, dealt with controversy over a 2015 television program in which he agreed with politician Mio Sugita's comments against the LGBTQ plus community. Yikes. Sad. So sad. Notable in their absence was any music linked to Nintendo, despite former Prime Minister Shinzo Abe cosplaying as Mario at the Olympic closing ceremonies in Rio de Janeiro 5 years ago. That closing ceremony also featured appearances by Doraemon, Captain Tsubasa, Pac-Man, Doraemon, and Hello Kitty, all of whom were absent along with the Pokemon Company at this opening ceremonies for the Tokyo Games. And this one, which I considering that the Olympics was supposed to start last year, but of course, due to unfortunate circumstances, had to be postponed until 2021, is the theme for Akira, or anything referencing Akira, but maybe it was for the best. So, like, if you were familiar with Akira, it's for the best. They probably didn't have any reference to it at the Olympics. Alright, so with that said, that concludes episode 20 of the Centaku Media Journal. If you are interested in listening to more episodes of the Centaku Media podcast, be sure to check out our most recent special episode, which is the first special episode in a year, which I talk about Final Fantasy XIV. And fun fact, I had to re-record this 3 times in the span of 8 months so I can get what I wanted to talk about right, because at the time I was still playing Shadowbringers, and then even I completed Shadowbringers, there was still some like news coming out about Endwalker, and now that we finally got some pertinent information about Endwalker and a release date, And with the explosion of new players after some prominent WoW streamers have played it, and after other things have happened in pretty much in the past week or two, and the recording of this episode, it's just going to get better. So I figured it'll be a good episode to record and, in the right time. So I hope you all enjoy it. Also, be sure to check out the contest that's happening on a Twitter account, because you have 2 days from when you listen to this episode, if it's on a Wednesday, to enter. If not, be sure to follow our socials for when the next contest happens. You can follow us on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Centaku Media. Also, be sure to check out the Twitch channel, Centaku Media, which is on twitch.tv. We stream 3 times a week, and of course, the last week of the month we take a break for a speedy mental recovery. So that's something I hope people will take the time to actually implement, but it's up to them how much they want to stream. And also the Ikari stream, which is a new series which I think I've neglected to talk about in a previous episode, but the Ikari stream is a series with every second Thursday of the month. Yeah, every second Thursday of the month I talk about an issue within the community of fandoms where it's an issue that I don't really want to talk about in the journal episodes, or it will take too much time, or just might put people off. So I decided to give any topics like that its own space. So you can check out the first episode of the Ikari stream, which was launched last month, in which we talk about spoilers and talk about having to deal with spoilers and how bad they are. And even if people try to be nice about it, it's still the possibility of you spoiling that story, so don't do that. Anyway, so be sure to check that out. Next episode is due next Thursday, so be sure to check it out. I'm not going to talk about what it is yet, but I hope you enjoy it. And I think that's all I have to say. And of course, if there's anything I forgot to say, be sure to check out Centaku Media on the socials. So until next time, so long.